following podcast is part of the Underdog Sports Podcasting Network. For a full list of our shows, as well as breaking sports news and engaging feature stories, visit us at www.theunderdogsports.com.
Talking around the bases with Ryan Carter and Logan Smith.
Welcome to Talking Around the Bases, episode 12. My name is Ryan Carter, and I'm again joined this week by the ever-so-knowledgeable Logan Smith. On this week's episode, we're going to be breaking down Ohtani madness and how he's still setting the world on fire, as well as a couple teams who are playing, I think, above their potential, and some teams playing below their potential as well. So we'll take a look at the standings and break down some interesting stuff that's happened since our last episode. So without further ado, Logan, how you doing this week?
Doing good, man. Just like we were talking before the show, man. A lot to cover in baseball this week. It's been crazy with all the injuries or exciting teams coming out of nowhere. And I went to 4 Nationals games this week, and I believe they lost all 4 of the ones that I went to. So I'm gonna have to not go to any more for a while now.
Yeah, the Nationals is one of those teams that they're in the leeway in for the segment is playing below their potential, which is kind of shocking, but. That offense, it's surprising because Bryce Harper actually leads the league in home runs, and their pitching has been amazing for them to, be losing that much. I mean, Scherzer's been awesome. Strasburg's been so-so. Gio's been pitching really good. So we'll have to see if the Nationals can kind of turn it around. But, yeah, it kind of sucks to go to games and then have to sit there through them losing, especially, I think, in a couple of those games where they were leading.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely not the best thing in the world, to go and watch your team lose. I'm sure everybody's been there. But, we're recording on the 14th of April, Saturday night, and Max Scherzer pitched a great game today. They finally got a win against Colorado, and the main thing is just the offense has to get going. But I think one of the main themes of this episode is it's still really early. We're going to talk about a lot of stuff that's been going on so far, and you just can't overreact right now in good ways, as far as certain guys that are lighting the world on fire, and you can't get, too far down on guys that have really been struggling or even teams that have been struggling so far. So you kind of have to find that happy medium of what to expect or what to think so far, but also, not to freak out about certain things.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, a lot of teams, like we said with the Nationals, they're still one game under 500, so it's not too far down, but it seems like the Cubs are struggling. The Dodgers are really struggling. I have no clue what's going on there. But, yeah, you can't really get too far down on like teams that are kind of not playing well compared to how they are. As well as like the Orioles, their offense is really good, but they're just not hitting the ball. Whereas their pitching, besides couple players like Tillman's just been awful all year. I purposely didn't watch the game the other day because I knew he was going to give up 4 runs in the first, and what did he do? Give up 4 runs in the first. I thought Cobb would have pitched a little bit better today than he did, but a lot of these pitchers that signed late have had a rough first outing. Arrieta's at first outing, he got roughed up, but kind of simmered down. So yeah, you can't really predict too much, but the Angels are out way ahead. The Mets, a ton of teams with big leads so far. So that's one good news.
Yeah, I mean, it's been, I think, in the offseason, whenever you looked at the NL especially, you would say, oh, well, there's 3 teams that are probably going to run away with each one of their divisions. Obviously the Dodgers, the Nationals, and then most people would probably said the Cubs would at least be, up front in that division. And like you said, I mean, right now, the Mets are 11-1. Obviously they've been playing amazing lately. Pitching's been awesome for them, and they have talent. It just depends how long they can stay healthy for. They obviously have a very old lineup and a very risky pitching staff, but obviously so far they're doing really well. Pittsburgh right now is playing awesome. Scoring a good bit of runs. Starting rotation's been pretty good for them. Trevor Williams has been awesome. Ivan Nova's been steady. They got Felipe Vasquez now, not Rivero anymore as their closer, and Arizona's been great. 10-3. Their pitching staff's been awesome. Patrick Corbin's been great. Zach Greinke's been pretty good for him. Brad Boxberger seems to be really filling in nicely for that closer's role. But you look at teams like we talked about. I mean, the Dodgers at 4-8, and they've actually given up more runs than they've scored so far. Cubs, they're 7-7, and the Nationals are 7-8. They've given up more runs than they've scored so far. So I think maybe you can't Sharpie them in to win each division right now, but you got to expect at least those three teams to finish at least closer than what it is right now.
Yeah, and with the Dodgers, it's one of those things that you don't expect them to give up that many runs with their type of rotation that they have. But the rotation hasn't looked solid. Obviously, last week we talked about Jansen not looking himself, and he kind of bounced back and had some pretty good outings. Picked up a couple saves, didn't give up like a lot of runs, but not back to full Jansen mode. But definitely a lot better than he was whenever we last talked about him. But Arizona, I figured that they would be playing this well because they made some nice moves. Of course, they didn't have JD Martinez to come back. But they had a lot of guys stay. Their pitching rotation wasn't that bad. I think they're pitching a little bit better than what I thought they would because, T1 Walker has a 3.27 ERA, and I think he's 0-0, so he hasn't really won or lost a game, but they're holding him in there and putting him in a nice position so far early on in the season.
Yeah, I mean, they look good. Obviously you expect Robbie Ray and Zach Greinke to get better. They each have ERAs that are over 5. But like I said, Patrick Corbin, 2.45. Walker, he'll pitch tonight against the Dodgers. But, yeah, he's got a 3.2 ERA so far. But mostly with the Diamondbacks, their bullpen's been awesome. Of course, I have to mention Zach Godley in the rotation. He's got a .64 ERA, so he's been great for them. But, Archie Bradley's been really good. Like I said with Brad Boxberger, he hasn't given up a run in 7 innings so far. They picked up Fernando Salas, the ex-Angels relief pitcher, and he's been really good for him. So right now, overall for the Diamondbacks, their pitching staff, starting pitching's been pretty good, especially you're expecting the top guys to come around. Bullpen's been really good, but something we got to mention, Paul Goldschmidt's batting under 200, which you never expect out of him. That usually that guy's the most, consistent, just going to go wake up, hit doubles, hit homers every day. So right now you're expecting, he's obviously going to get better. There's just no doubt about that. So Diamondbacks could really be good contenders, if not for the division, at least for a great wild card spot, in my opinion.
Yeah, and with Goldschmidt, he is up from last week. Last week, whenever we talked about him, he was hitting 0.97, so now he's up to a .191, so he's starting to climb. He now has 2 home runs, only 16 strikeouts, but only 7 RBIs. So, yeah, once he starts getting going, you hope that he starts getting going while everyone else is still hot and hitting the ball, because if he starts getting going and then everyone else gets cold, then it might be a different story. But speaking of cold as well, Stanton, we talked about him last week. This week, he has 3 home runs, 10 RBIs, only 6 walks, but he does lead the league. He's tied with Paul DeJong for the most strikeouts in the league at 25. He had that 5 strikeout game that we talked about for the Platinum Sombrero, and then he turned it around maybe 2 nights later and had another 5 strikeout game. So, with him, you're going to get a lot of strikeouts. He does have home runs, and just the fact, when we were talking about it, I don't know if we mentioned this last week or not, but Yankees fans booing him, and you just can't boo a guy who is, MVP last year just because, he's striking out. They're still winning games, so they have nothing to really complain about, but, Yankees fans just sometimes, I guess, do that. They want their players just to be 100% all the time.
Yeah, obviously, playing in Miami for Stanton, there probably wasn't any expectations, or at least, if there wasn't, definitely not nearly as many fans down there as there are in New York. So maybe, just starting off, some of the pressures getting to him a little bit. Like you said, at least he's turning around a little bit, batting around 220, but still that OBP of 303, with someone, as good as he is, and in that lineup that's so good, you got to bring that OBP up, which I'm sure he will, in time, but you really got to cut down on the strikeouts. And, I remember when he was in Miami, he had a strikeout problem, but I don't remember it nearly being this bad. He has 8 more strikeouts than Aaron Judge. Like you said, pretty much leading the league right now. So that's definitely something that either, AL pitchers, he just can't figure them out right now, or some of the pressure's getting to him, maybe a combination of both. But that's definitely something that we'll be keeping our eye on for a while. Speaking of the Yankees, I don't know if you saw the other day with the Red Sox, but it seems like they got into a bench clearing brawl.
Yeah, what had happened is Tyler Austin, I guess, slid in a little hard into second base on Brock Holt. Kind of threw his leg out there a little bit, but it wasn't anything like too major, like out of the ordinary. Brock Holt just took objection to it, and they kind of just talked, and both benches came out. Nothing really happened on that. They were just having heated words. And then, a little bit later, Joe Kelly actually hits Tyler Austin in the back, and Tyler Austin charges the mound. And that's where everything just kind of got out of whack. And, you're going to see that with the Red Sox and Yankees. Years and years and years. You always see it every year. Something like this happens. All the way back, Pedro Martinez throwing ball at people. So, it's just to be expected.
Well, I think it's a good thing for baseball whenever this rivalry seems to be renewed like it is now. That was. Obviously, I think the Tyler Austin slide. It seemed like he pretty much tried to go cleats up into Brock Holt's ankle, which Brock Holt obviously took a section to. But then Joe Kelly, like you said, hit Tyler Austin. Tyler Austin slams the bat down, and he was kind of just standing there. And I think Joe Kelly basically told him to, come on, bring it. And I think Boston fans are absolutely in love with Joe Kelly right now just because of that move, I think it kind of shows Boston being pretty much, tough. And Boston fans obviously love that because I've been on Joe Kelly's Twitter or Instagram, and all the fans are just talking about how much they love it. But that wasn't the only brawl that week. I believe San Diego and Colorado got into another one with Luis Perdomo and Nolan Arenado kind of in the middle of it.
Yeah, Arenado got hit. I guess it stemmed back a little bit. They're the games that they played previously where there was some hit batters as well. I can understand. You never really know 100% if they're intentionally throwing at a guy or not. A lot of times if it's curveballs or sliders or breaking balls, that's not really intentional because who's going to do that? You're just going to throw a fastball at them. That one I didn't get to see too much of, but I know it did stem back towards where other players got hit in previous weeks, and I think Arenado was one of them as well, and he just kind of just boiled over and had enough.
Well, I think because I did get to see some of this one. So I believe the night before, Manuel Margot, the Padres center fielder, got hit in the ribs, and I believe that I guess the Padres players thought that it was on purpose. So they obviously they take exception to it, and then later on that game, or the next game, Hunter Renfroe, their right fielder, got hit on the hand. So then Luis Perdomo was on the mound, and the first pitch to lead off an inning, Nolan Arenado got hit right on the back, and he basically instantly just threw down his helmet, charged the mound, and Luis Perdomo kind of threw his glove at him and then just kind of ran away from it. It wasn't really a good look for Perdomo, and then Gerardo Parra came in and basically got into it with all of them. So I believe Arenado got suspended 5 games, Luis Perdomo got suspended 5 games, and then Gerardo Parra got suspended 4 games. So obviously, early on in the season, some tempers are flaring, but besides that, it seems like tempers are flaring a lot, but there's also been a lot of injuries like we were talking about just before we got on air, man.
Yeah, a ton of injuries so far. Nothing too serious where guys are, out for long periods of times, but just today as well, not really on the DL, but Mookie Betts had a little bit of a rough up with his, I think it was like his leg or arm or like calf muscle.
I think I saw a foot contusion. But it's
okay.
Day to day.
He's just listed day to day, so he'll probably come back in. Scope went on the DL recently. A lot of guys just being out. Rizzo, obviously, of course. Kendrys Morales. I was actually watching that game against the Orioles whenever he was running to first. I didn't really see anything, but on first he kind of called over, and maybe something with his hamstring or he pulled something. So, a lot of guys going on the DL, and a lot of guys coming off the DL. Kinsler got off the DL. Cruz is coming off the DL tonight. So, early in the season, I expect a lot of 10-day DL stuff. Luckily, no one's gone far down on the 60 DL.
Yeah, I mean, just looking at it, I mean, Donaldson, he went on the DL. Elvis Andrews actually fractured his elbow, but they only placed him on the 10-day DL for at least now. Like you said, Kinsler, Aaron Hicks came off the DL. Adam Eaton, he went on the DL as well as Manuel Margot for the whole getting hit in the ribs incident. Rizzo, Cueto, and Rudnid Odor went on the DL, and I think the biggest one so far, is Xander Bogaerts went on the DL, but Eugenio Suarez, he broke his thumb, and he's going to be out for a good while. I mean, probably at least 6 weeks on that one, and that one really hurts the Reds because they're already right now they're the worst team in the league. I mean, they only have 2 wins so far, and that doesn't help their case at all. That they're not scoring runs. They have one of the lower, if not the lowest, runs scored in the league, and they've given up the most runs in the league. Right now they've only scored 42 runs, and there's only 2 teams worse than that. And that's Tampa Bay and Kansas City. So you take a team that's not scoring runs and you take away one of their bigger offensive pieces, and man, you just kind of wonder when this team, if they will get any wins in the near future.
Yeah, the Reds, being a Reds fan for a while and liking the Reds as a National League team, it's not good year so far to watch them. And of course, with the Orioles playing not so well right now. Yeah, Reds giving up 89 runs so far is not a good way to start off your season, especially whenever you can't score runs either. And, Billy Hamilton hasn't been looking good. I feel kind of bad for Votto because, I mean, he's trying so hard just to do things. Nothing around him. And I mean, Suarez was one of the bright parts, and him going down, I did totally forget about that. But I mean, this Cozart's not there anymore. Obviously, Jay Bruce a couple years ago being traded, Brandon Phillips as well. So just Votto, in my opinion, and I think the sooner he can get out of there and somewhere else, the better for him.
Yeah, I mean, with him having that, obviously massive contract, I mean, and I'm sure he has a no trade clause to go around with it. So that's really going to be interesting if he does ever. I mean, I'm sure they could get a good bet of prospects for him, but it just depends if anybody wants to take on that contract, But one, actually 2 injuries that we didn't even talk about yet, and it's by the hottest team in the league. The Mets lost their starting catcher, Travis d'Arnaud, and then they lost their backup catcher, Kevin Plawecki. So do you think that they're going to go out and make a trade for someone like a JT Realmuto or a Devin Mesoraco, or do you see them kind of staying with in-house options like a Jose Lobaton? Like, what do you think the Mets are going to do? Because obviously right now they have to see themselves as a contender, but with losing your top 2 catchers, that's not going to help them at all.
I think it's a little too early to try to go out and make a trade. I think that their hot start, they can. I mean, obviously want to keep on with the hot start, and you don't want to give the Nationals any more games to creep up back on you, because that's just gonna, if they get hot again and mid-season, it just might be bad if they can't keep the stretch ahead. So I think it's a little bit too early to do any sort of trade. I think they're fine if they just go with a backup like Jose Lobaton, who's actually starting today, or maybe someone else, because the rest of their players are fine. They got Conforto back, so he had that pretty good game whenever he came back against the Nationals. I think they'll give it some time. If they start playing bad, all their players start playing bad, they might go out and get someone, but I just don't know who they would want to give up, or what they have to give up for it, or who would be willing to part. I mean, JT Realmuto, obviously, but the Marlins, they don't have a great record. They're 4-9, but they're not playing bad like we talked about last week. They're actually in a lot of these games, so I just don't know who they would get this early.
So if the Mets are the hottest team in the league, let's say Boston's second, and let's say the LA Angels are third, so let's not bury the lead for any longer. We got to talk about Shohei Ohtani.
Yeah, you can't not talk baseball without talking about Ohtani. I mean, this guy so good right now that I kind of just want to go get his jersey and just hop ship. I'm just, abandon the Orioles, go watch the Angels. That's how much I like this guy. I mean, obviously it's early. He had a terrible spring. I'm not going to lie. We both thought that he would probably, slim chance, but he would probably start in AAA. I thought maybe he was way too overhyped. I'm not going to lie. That's what I said. I think he was way too overhyped. But man, come come, I don't know, regular season, he's turned into a whole different person. Like, and it's not just like we talked about last week. It's not just like, not top end starters that he's doing this off of. I mean, he took Kluber deep, which we talked about last week, and these are major league pitchers, and a lot of times when these guys come over from Japan, and I've seen it a lot, they don't get the timing down. Their swings look awful. But every time I watch any of his swings, I mean, his swing is perfect in there. He's not over swinging anything. How he kind of leads into the ball reminds me a little bit of how Ichiro used to do it, how he kind of like running swings into it. But Ohtani obviously has a lot more power. And the fact that he's pitching well. He took that perfect game into the 7th. I thought he was going to have a perfect game. I really did. He was pitching so good. I mean, obviously he pitches tomorrow, so tomorrow's Sunday on the 15th. If you're a baseball fan, you got nothing to do around 2:15. He is pitching, and so far he has been lights out.
Man, I mean, this guy is taking the world by storm. He right now, you could say, well, we kind of knew he was a good pitcher. Which right now, obviously, he started 2 games. He's 2-0 with a 2.08 ERA. He has 13 innings pitched, 18 strikeouts, and the biggest thing is a .46 WHIP. So he's only walked 2 guys, giving up 4 hits. So he's been awesome pitching, which maybe people weren't thinking he was going to be that good, but they still thought he was going to be good. But then when you go over to his hitting stats, he has 11 hits and 30 at bats, which with 3 home runs, 11 RBIs. 367 average with a 424 OBP. That's crazy. I mean, we haven't seen something like this in any of our lifetimes. This is nuts. I mean, it's really fun for baseball. Obviously, it's really fun if you're an Angels fan. Not really fun if you're another AL West teams fan. But man, I mean, it's been crazy so far. And Mike Trout really hasn't been, I don't think, normal Mike Trout yet. Obviously 5 home runs so far, really good on that. 2 stolen bases, but he's only batting .271. So you got to think he's going to get hot. Justin Upton really hasn't gotten going yet. They just got Ian Kinsler back from the DL. So this team still has a really good, they could get better than what they are right now. And right now, they're leading the AL West and have one of the best records in all of the AL. So man, I mean, this team could, I wouldn't really say a surprise team, because I think a lot of people was projecting them to have a really good year, but I don't think anybody was projecting this, especially from Ohtani this early.
Yeah, and, other than his whip being so good, the most surprising part to me about Ohtani is his batting average against, which, opponents are only hitting .093 off of him, so he's not giving up a lot of hits. He's only given up 4 hits in 13 innings, which is pretty good compared to some of these other guys going out there, giving up some hits. Of course, they can work out of it, so that's one interesting part I want to see, is when the game he actually does start to give up hits, how well he can pitch out of it, how well he can pitch out of like a bases loaded jam, how well he could pitch out of like first and third with, no outs, maybe only give up that 1 run. So that's something he hasn't had too much exposure to yet, and one thing we'll have to keep an eye on. So, I mean, other than that, he's not walking anybody either. He has a 9.1% walk, which is really good. He's only given up 2 walks. One of the hits he has given up has been a home run. So he hasn't had a lot of fly balls per se, but, Ohtani, man, like I said, if you're not watching him, you got to watch him, even if you're not an Angels fan. But if you're in that division and you don't like the Angels, then don't watch it, because that might make you mad. But yeah, definitely, just go watch the guy. He's absolutely fun to watch.
I just want to say, as I was talking about Mike Trout, he just hit a 2-run home run. So, as on cue, just like last week whenever we were talking about Ohtani and he hits a home run, now Mike Trout hits one. But yeah, man, I mean, I agree 100%. You got to go watch him. It's a lot of fun. And it's just right now, it's just good for baseball, because obviously, a big thing with baseball is they're trying to get people into it, or they're trying to get younger kids into it, and they're just trying to bring excitement. Well, I'll tell you right now, someone like Shohei Ohtani is going to bring a lot of excitement, whether one way or another,
Yeah, and he's doing a lot of firsts, too. He hit his first triple the other day, 3-run triple. Bases were loaded. He shot it right up the gap. He hit his first double. I think it was last night he hit his first double, so he's getting a lot of firsts out of the way, and obviously he's got to cool down at some point. He may not cool down at some point. It could just be with that judge factor. And, like I was telling you, really all he has to do is, if he can win 18 games, I don't know if they're going to pitch him that much, because you don't know how he's going to wear down with hitting so much and pitching. But if you think about it, in the National League, a lot of those pitchers do hit about 3 times, but they're not running the bases like he does as hard as he does. So we'll see how they can give him some time off. But if he can, have 18 wins and hit at least 20 home runs, I'm pretty sure he has to be a shoe-in for MVP. It's no one else can really compete with that.
Well, I believe that they actually had something come out where they were talking about, best odds to win MVP, and I actually believe he was either at the top of the list or near the top of the list. So, obviously Vegas or some bookies are buying into it, but right now it obviously helps his cause because like you said, he can do so much, just in one way or another. But someone else, right now for the Pittsburgh Pirates, we talked about them, how they were leading the NL Central. And I just had to get your thoughts about, man, Gregory Polanco seems to be just throwing the team on his back. I mean, 5 home runs so far, 15 RBIs, got a 357 OBP. Man, he, obviously a top prospect for a long time. The tools have been there, it seems like, but he's never really put it together, either been injured or just having problems with different things. He's leading the league in RBIs right now. What do you think about the Pirates start, and what do you think about Gregory Polanco so far?
Well, my dad is a Pirates fan, so I do like to give him a lot of crap because the Pirates just, I don't know, the Pirates just are awful sometimes. But, I mean, I don't know, this start's really good by them. I don't know if they can keep it up, just because like we talked about in the beginning, it's just a lot of these guys, when you think about it, they're not guys that you would expect to play this well. I mean, obviously, Polanco's start, that's what I kind of expect from him. I think he's a really good ball player. Corey Dickerson, obviously, is batting really well. He has 356 average, only 1 home run, 7 strikeouts. But, he's one of those guys that was a all-star last year with Tampa Bay. And like we talked about in the offseason, I don't get what Tampa Bay was thinking of just getting rid of the guy unless he wanted us to leave or there was clubhouse issues. But you never really hear that much about clubhouse issues with them. So I don't know what they were thinking. Obviously, Corey Dickerson would be helping Tampa Bay a lot. But, the Pirates, I don't know. They're just playing really well. I don't think they've played anybody, to be honest. They've played the Cubs and, played them really well. They won a couple games, but the Cubs, like we said, haven't been playing well. So I think that they're catching some teams not playing well early in the season, and they're playing some teams that we expect to be bad, like Detroit, and that's, put them ahead. So we'll see once it comes time for them to, play teams that are, playing really well, like St. Louis playing, playing against, other teams in that division as well. So I don't know. I don't know what to think about them yet.
Yeah, I mean, they're going to be a really interesting team because, that division, we really thought it was like a 3-headed race, between St. Louis and Chicago and Milwaukee. And now the Pirates are like, well, you forgot to throw our name in there just because, like we talked about. I mean, the offense has been doing good. They picked up Corey Dickerson for basically nothing, like you said. And Josh Bell still hasn't really gotten going yet. Cervelli's been pretty good for him. But I still worry about their starting rotation. Trevor Williams has been a good pitcher for them so far, really good. But man, I mean, they don't have those big names. They don't have that Garrett Cole in there, obviously. They still got Ivan Nova, which you're not really sure what you're going to get out of. Obviously he seems to be consistent at least giving you innings, but you're not really sure other than that. Jamison Tyon's been awesome. 1.26 ERA. Only a 1 point, batting average against 106, which has been awesome. 0.49 whip, so he's been really good. Trevor Williams has been good. Nova, around that 5 ERA. You obviously expect him to bring that down a little bit, but not too much, really, in my opinion. It probably sitting around the 4. So it would be interesting to see if we're in May or June and the Pirates are still up there, they could go out and try to make a move. They're not really big spenders. But if somebody's on a lower contract, maybe a contending team's trying to get rid of somebody, obviously the Rays seem to be like they're going to have a fire sale and they kind of just like to give away players. So maybe the Pirates can try to double dip in there and get another piece. But yeah, I mean, it's going to be a fun year for the NL Central, especially we thought it was going to be one of the most exciting divisions so far. And that was with 3 teams. Obviously 4 makes it even better. But on the flip side, the AL Central, maybe your pick of picking Minnesota not looking so bad right now. A half game up on Cleveland. What are you thinking, man?
Yeah, Minnesota, I think a lot of their players aren't playing as expected. Buxton's not, having that great of a year offensively. He's never been like super great offensively, but I thought a guy that was going to help them out, Logan Morrison, hasn't been hitting the ball yet. So they're winning without, having these guys, hit the ball. Maurer's been amazing. I think he's second in the league in average right now. And, their rotation, obviously, which is a big part, still missing, Santana. So whenever he comes back, I think they only get better from here. And, a lot of this is due to the fact that Cleveland isn't playing well. Obviously, we talked last week how they were the worst hitting team in the league so far, not hitting the ball. They're starting to get rolling. They picked up a nice, walk-off win on that Gomes home run the other day. I don't know. I think Minnesota definitely right where I thought they would be. I think they can keep it up, and I think they only get better.
Yeah, I mean, I remember, Minnesota, you really bought in. You were really drinking the Kool-Aid early in the offseason. They had that big win this week against Houston where they actually took an 8-1 lead. They ended up blowing it, and Houston tied it up at 8 in the ninth inning. But Max Kepler hit his second home run of the day, which was a walk-off. So that was a really good win for them. Like you said, I mean, Joe Mauer batting .412 right now. That's awesome. Logan Morrison batting .88, just under 100. You definitely can't expect that to continue. And Buxton's batting 195. So that's kind of I think he's not a great average hitter, but you got to think he's going to be better than that. But yeah, man, I mean, their pitching staff's been pretty good. Jose Barrios has been awesome. 2.18 ERA. Odorizzi with the 2.20 ERA. Lynn's still sitting around a 5, so he has not gotten comfortable yet. And like you said, man, their ace is still waiting to come back sometime in May. Irving Santana is, he's their main guy. Bullpen, Addison Reed's been awesome for them. You kind of expected that whenever they signed him. So I don't think Cleveland is going to keep struggling like this, at least offensively. I mean, I know the other day they beat Michael Fulmer up pretty good, scored, I think, like 8 or 9 runs against him. That was kind of rough. But, yeah, I mean, you're waiting on guys to get going. I mean, Jose Ramirez, he finished top 3 in MVP voting last year. He's batting 160. Lindor's batting 241. Yan Gomes, 194. Edwin Encarnacion, I mean, I know he's getting up there in age, but you can't expect him to – I mean, you got to expect better than this. I mean, a 146 average. Kipnis, 164. A lot of these guys, I mean, they're getting unlucky. But not only that, they're just not getting great contact yet. Maybe they left the bats down in warmer weather, and some of these teams, they just don't like hitting in cold, so that they really need the summertime to come. I still like Cleveland to win the division, but honestly, Minnesota's intriguing right now. They're playing good.
Yeah, another team that's kind of playing good, going through with and a Pirates type theme is Garrett Cole with the Houston Astros. Has been amazing. He actually set a record the other day. He struck out a record-setting 14 batters in 7 innings, and that was, I think, his 3rd straight time of 14 strikeouts, which was like, I think he has the most strikeouts with a new team for anyone who's, like, moved over, and he's been pitching amazing. So, obviously, Pittsburgh got good return. They have a lot of good players, but Garrett Cole in Houston's been playing well, and, for the Angels to be 12-3. I mean, Houston's right on their tail. I mean, they did lose today, 6-5 in the 10th, but man, Houston's been playing amazing, which is what we expect, and that's just been pretty much 2-horse race right there. And Garrett Cole's been a big reason.
Yeah, I mean, we knew, I think a lot of people aren't talking about Houston, like you said, because they're sitting at 10-5. That's great so far, obviously, but everybody kind of expected it. I mean, their starting rotation is just so good. I mean, like you said, Garrett Cole coming over, and from what I've been hearing is that the Astros are not having him throw his sinker as much, and they're having him throw a really good curveball that he has more, and he's been awesome so far. I mean, 36 strikeouts is just crazy, only in 21 innings. Charlie Morton pitched really well today. He's 2-0. He's been awesome. Big, another former Pirate. So those two are leading the charge. Justin Verlander, 1.45 ERA. And Keuchel, their ace, really, he hasn't even gotten going yet, 4.2 ERA. So the big thing with them, I think that they're going to have, I don't know if it's a problem or something that they might address. I don't really know how you want to frame it. but their bullpen. Ken Giles, they don't seem to have a lot of trust in him. Last night they gave Chris Davinsky the save, and he executed on that, so he might be the closer now. They have good pieces, but I don't think Giles is their I don't know, he's still young, so maybe he's their long-term closer. But right now, it doesn't seem like they have a lot of faith in him, even leading back to the World Series last year. Lance McCullers, he was really good in the bullpen last year, really good in the rotation, even in the playoffs. Right now, a 7.71 ERA. I know he just got roughed up by the Twins, the game I was referring to, he pitched. So that's really kind of going to be something to watch this year, because their rotation's probably, one of the most, I don't know if I want to say underrated, but it just doesn't seem like they get as much recognition as the Mets or the Nationals or the Cubs. And just because, they're out, obviously they're in Texas, they just won the World Series, but man, that rotation is for real.
Yeah, welcome back, Gurriel. So he hit that home run today for his first game of the 2018 season, coming back from, of course, with the, the racial slur and the racial motion that he made towards Yu Darvish at last year's playoffs. He got suspended and he was a little hurt, so he came back off the DL and he right back in the swing of things. So that's a big boost to their offense, is getting him back. And, with Garrett Cole, obviously, like I said, with that 14 strikeouts, it was, the most strikeouts in a game on 93 pitches or fewer, and the previous record was 13 by Alex Wood, which was in 2016. He did it on 93 pitches, so he only did 13 strikeouts. Man, I don't know. Houston, I think, I don't know. At the beginning, we both had them winning this division, but I don't know. It's too early to change, but it might be hard because the Angels are playing super good, and Ohtani's way better than I thought. So maybe I'll save it for halfway through the season and see where it's at. But I think the Angels might be able just to win this division, and Houston obviously making the wild card, so that might change my mind a little.
Yeah, it would definitely be a fun pick to take the Angels. I think the Astros are the best team probably in the entire league right now, because their biggest competitors, in my opinion, the Indians, not really playing great right now. The Dodgers, the Nationals, the Cubs, not really playing great right now. The only really other team I think that you could, obviously the Angels have been good so far, and the Red Sox and the Mets. So right now, I think I would take it Angels, as the best chance to get back to the World Series. Honestly, they've been awesome. The Angels, you're worried about their starting pitching. Obviously, they have like 6 or 7 guys. You just got to see how many can stay healthy. And Keon Middleton, he's really stepped into the closer's role pretty well for him so far. So that's been a nice, guy that's kind of came out of almost nowhere to become the closer for them. But honestly, I'm still going Astros. But if people want to get excited about the Angels and they want to say, well, let's keep an eye on them. They could definitely compete. There's no doubt about it. Especially if guys like Garrett Richards and Shohei Ohtani can bolster that rotation. Obviously, you've got Trout, you've got Kinsler in the lineup that are going to really be solid in there as well.
Yeah, and Boston playing really good. That division, of course, the Orioles aren't playing great. After I say for them to win the World Series, they got to do this to me. Their pitching has been decent so far. Bundy's pitched well. Mike Cashner watch is still on. He's been pitching really good. His last 2 games, he's been amazing. Didn't give up a run. He's 1-1 with a 2.5 ERA. 18 innings pitched, pretty good. 8 walks, which is a little high. 16 strikeouts, but I don't expect him to strike out a lot. And of course, Dylan Bundy, who hasn't won a game yet, he's 0-1 with 1.35 ERA. 20 innings pitched. Only 3 runs given up all year with 25 strikeouts. So what I need is Gausman to actually pitch like Gausman, but like I usually tell you, he doesn't get there until about 60 innings, so he'll probably still be this way. Unfortunately, I just think Tillman is just done. I never thought they should have re-signed him. He's good for the 5th spot just because he's a veteran and he could have a good game, but he has 11.91 ERA. And, Cobb, obviously, today, that's a tough thing to do is whenever you sign so short and then have to come out against one of the hottest teams. So I'm not going to put too much into that start. So we'll have to see how well he fares. But a lot of pitchers are just getting blown up, which I normally wouldn't, with the Quintana and Darvish again getting lit up for another game. So I don't know. The Cubs are kind of not having a great start as I thought. Neither is the Orioles. But, like we said, still early. It's anyone's game at this point. Backtrack on the Pirates is right now they're playing Miami, and they actually lost the other night. And you can't just do stupid plays. And what had happened was, did you see the sacrifice fly at all?
I did see that.
So the guy comes in off the sacrifice fly. Polanco makes a decent throw, not a great throw, but one hops it, and then Diaz just shoots it right over top of the shortstop covering second base because the guy was trying to get the second off the sac fly, and shoots it straight out into no man's land, nobody out there, and the guy on first scores all the way around. So ended up what was it, like a 3-run or like a 3-run sac fly or something? It was crazy.
Yeah, I think the bases were loaded, and like you said, they hit a fly ball to right field. And all the runners had tagged up. So Polanco launched the ball to the catcher. Not a bad throw. The guy was safe, so that scored a run. And then the guy from first was trying to tag up, go to second. And like you said, the catcher launched the ball to the second baseman. Well, it went way over his head, so it went into center field. Well, the center fielder, Marte, was actually helping Polanco in right field, so there was nobody in center field, and it let the guys that was on first and second both score. So it ended up being a 3-run sacrifice fly, which I know Miami, they're not very good, but like you said, so far they've been, I think, a little bit more competitive than people were thinking. And honestly, if you make that bad of a mistake against a major league team, you probably deserve to pretty much just about lose that game. I mean, that's pretty bad, man.
Yeah, and that's one of those things with when we were talking about the Pirates, and what I thought is since I said their schedule hasn't been very strong, the Reds, Detroit going up against a Cubs team that hasn't been playing well, now playing a Marlins team who 4-9, they're playing good like we said, but still expect you got to beat the bad teams if you want to try to win a division and go to the playoffs. And that you can't do that in that game yesterday. And today it's a 0-0 score, and they've only got one hit. So the Pirates, I think that they need to start beating up on these teams and like crushing them for them to be serious contenders. I just wanted to go back to that point real quick. But in other news, the Mets might actually lose today because they're down 4-0, and what did they won, like 10 games in a row it was? I think they were going for like their 11th straight win today.
Yeah, right now they've won 9 straight. So this would be their 10th straight win if they could win today, but like you said, they are trailing right now.
Yeah, and I think, and other than the teams that we've talked about so far, a team that has kind of surprised me about how bad they're playing is the Rangers. And I thought the Rangers would actually be a little bit better than I thought. The rotation we knew was never going to be good, but they're 5-11 so far, and I don't know. They're kind of roughed up because Odor went down with an injury. They're not really hitting. They're not pitching. They're just kind of in a lull right now.
Yeah, I mean, I was kind of expecting Texas to struggle this year. Like you said, the injuries have hurt. Their 2 middle infielders, Odor and Andrews, both got hurt, so that obviously is going to be kind of a red flag for them right now. But with that rotation, man, you can't, with that, Doug Fister, he's on the DL now, and when you're throwing out, no offense, but when you're throwing out Bartolo Colon, and when you're taking guys, like Matt Moore, which he has an 8.76 ERA, Martin Perez has an 11.88 ERA, Jesse Chavez just over 7. Mike Minor's been actually okay for him, 4.6, and then Cole Hammer's at 4.5. Obviously, it comes down to pitching, and they have a lot of question marks even in their bullpen, but especially in their rotation. I mean, I knew Matt Moore going over there from San Francisco was just going to be terrible. He's a fly ball pitcher. He doesn't have the velocity like he used to at Tampa Bay. It's just a disaster waiting to happen. Keone Kela, their young closer, he's actually been pretty good for him. Pitched in 5 games and hasn't given up any runs. But man, yeah, it's going to be a tough year because, like you talked about, the Angels are really good. Houston's really good. The Mariners have actually been playing pretty good. Oakland has a pretty good offense. The rotation's not there yet. So Texas, I have them penciled in to finish last right now. I think that they have a couple bright spots. Obviously, it's fun getting to go watch Adrian Beltre every night. They still have young right fielder Nomar Mazzaro and Joey Gallo. He actually has more career home runs than he does singles. I believe he has 35 career home runs and 30 singles. Obviously he's going to strike out a ton, but still has 5 home runs so far. I believe he had another one today. So there's still a couple of exciting things to go out to the ballpark to see, but I don't expect this team to finish higher than 4th.
Yeah, I can kind of agree. And one of the things is I think they made a terrible move so far. Just a couple of days ago. Normally I wouldn't talk down about any player, but I have a right to, because he pitched on the Orioles and he made me mad. So this dude is just, I don't know what's going on, but we joked last week about Bartolo Colon making his rounds to every team. So far, he has a running mate so far that might just do it this year. Giovanni Gerardo was picked up by the Rangers on a minor league contract. Here's how Gerardo's season's gone so far. He was signed with the Brewers, who I think cut him before the season even started. They DFA'd him. The Reds picked him up, and he went to the Reds, and he pitched in 3 games for the Reds, and he was DFA'd from the Reds after allowing 8 runs in 2 1/3 innings because he refused an outright assignment. So he became a free agent. Now the Rangers have picked him up on a minor league contract and assigned him to AAA Round Rock. If he comes up to the majors, I'm telling you this dude's going to give up more runs, and he'll probably get DFA'd for the 3rd time this year. I think if that just keeps happening, you just got to say, look, I'm done. I'm retiring.
Well, man, hey, at least he's getting paid, right? I mean, that's good for him. But
that is the bright spot.
Well, speaking of giving up a whole bunch of runs, I wanted to mention this earlier whenever you mentioned the Marlins.
I think I know where you're going with this. Hold on.
Last Saturday, after we recorded, there was the Eagles played the Dolphins? What was this, 20-1, Ryan? You got to tell me what happened there.
Yeah. Okay. So I have no clue what in the world this game was all about. This one is up there in my Twilight Zone type game. What was the final score on that? I think it was.
It was 20-1. The Philadelphia Phillies beat the Miami Marlins on that one.
Yeah. I don't know. It was the Marlins. I'm just gonna say it was the Marlins. That's.
It was the Marlins. Yeah, it has to be, right? I mean, Dylan Peters, the starting pitcher, he pitched 2 2/3, gave up 9 earned runs. They bring in Jacob Turner from the bullpen. He pitched 1 inning, gave up 8 earned runs. Man, that's tough. I mean, the only good thing is it was in Philadelphia, so at least the fans were happy. I don't really know what else to say, man. I mean, I remember seeing that box score that night, and I was just like, oh my gosh. I mean, I believe the Phillies hit a grand slam in the 1st and the 3rd, if I remember correctly. I mean, it's just, man, that's a tough day, for the Marlins. Obviously, we talked a lot last week about Gabe Kapler kind of getting booed basically in Philadelphia. Well, I'll tell you, having a game like this will definitely make some fans change their minds on you really quick if you can drop a 20 spot on a baseball team in early April.
Yeah, and like I was saying, is this one would have made my Twilight Zone segment, but since it's the Marlins, I didn't. Whatever. It's the Marlins. The one that actually makes the Twilight segment this week is actually a team that we said was going to be fun to watch, which was the Oakland Athletics putting up a 16 spot on the Dodgers in a game which Alex Wood pitched and gave up 7 runs in 3 2/3 inning. And then ended with Font. Who is this? Mike Font? Is that what it is?
I think it's Wilmer.
Wilmer Font, yeah. Wilmer Font giving up 6 innings later on the game. And it was the Oakland Athletics putting up 16 runs, which is, wow. I did not expect that. Chris Davis obviously crushed the ball. Matt Chapman had a home run, and, Lowry had a 3-run home run in this game. But they mostly did it with just singles and doubles.
Yeah, I mean, you're not expecting that whenever you see, Alex Wood on the mound. Obviously, you're kind of thinking that you're going to get a good pitching matchup. But obviously, we've talked about Oakland has a pretty good lineup, definitely young, and they crushed the ball that night. One thing I'm kind of surprised, I got to say, I was looking forward to this segment, and one thing I hope you saw it. Did you see last Saturday again? I don't know what was in the water. The San Diego Padres and Houston Astros played a game, and did you get to see the ending of that game?
Yeah, that was going to be up there in the Twilight segment as well. I just thought that against Alex Wood and the Dodgers, it would beat it out, but they actually won the game with a basic routine, just pop fly, in which Eric Hosmer just overran the ball, I guess I want to say, and it just dropped behind him, and the guy came in from third. I don't know who it was, but scored for Houston and won 1-0.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, that was crazy. That was one of the craziest things I've seen. Bottom of the 10th inning, nobody scored. Brian McCann led off the bottom of the 10th with the single, and they pinch ran with Derek Fisher, and he stole second base. Jake Marisnik lined out. George Stringer struck out, so now you're feeling pretty good. Guy on second. They bring in a reliever, Phil Mayton, the Padres do, and Alex Bregman on a full count. He popped up, just a routine pop up, pretty much right beside to the pitcher's mound, just to the right a little bit, and Eric Hosmer comes running in, and like you said, all of a sudden he kind of reaches back, like he almost, like you said, he either lost it, overran it, and the ball lands right behind him. The Derek Fisher comes flying. Obviously he was already running since there was 2 outs, and he scores, and he won the game on. They gave him a single, but it was a pop up. I mean, there's no doubt about it. Just straight up in the air, man. That was that's rough. I know they're playing in Houston. I can't remember if the dome was open or closed. Maybe it was closed, and he just lost it in the roof or something like that. Probably not used to playing out there too often. But man, that's really rough for the Padres. They haven't really had a great start to the year. Only 5-10 so far, and that didn't help anything at all. Having to watch that.
Yeah, and speaking of all these teams, the last team I wanted to leave for last to talk about is a team that I thought was going to be amazing last year, and it's actually this year that they're amazing. Is the Atlanta Braves, who, besides the game today where the Cubs actually, came back and scored 9 runs in the bottom of the 8th to win the game 14-10, the Braves have been playing really good and huge part, in fact, to Ozzie Albies, who is absolutely crushing the ball. So once Acuna finally comes up, I mean, the Braves are going to be kind of scary in this division already with a scary Mets team.
In my notes, I had to talk about how good Atlanta's bullpen had been. They had a couple of guys that hadn't given up a single run so far on the year, and then today happened. They're up 10. They're up 10 to 2, I believe. Yeah, they're up 10-2 after 4 innings, and they give up 1 in the 6th, no big deal. 2 in the 7th, still leading 10-5. And like you said, the Cubs drop a nice 9 spot on the bottom of the 8th inning to win the game 14-10. I mean, not counting tonight, it's pretty much with what happened. They've been good. Their bullpen has been really good. I don't really know how to word it today because of what happened. I mean, Jose Ramirez got absolutely crushed today, but they still have some nice pieces. I mean, AJ Minter's been really good for them. Peter Moreland, somehow he hasn't given up a run yet. I don't really know how that's possible. He's pitched 4 innings, given up 6 hits, 6 walks, but 7 strikeouts. So I guess he's just walking the tightrope. I don't know how long that'll last for him. But Sam Freeman, actually they had Anibal Sanchez, the ex-Marlin and the ex-Detroit Tiger. He pitched a good game for him last night against the Cubs, and I think he went like 6 shutout innings. That like you said, they've been a surprise. I mean, Mike Foltynewicz, he's been really good. Brandon McCarthy, he's been pretty good for him, 3.3 ERA. I was actually at the game whenever he dislocated his shoulder trying to cover a ball to first base, and then the trainer ran onto the field and pretty much popped it back into place. And McCarthy wanted to pitch through it, but they wouldn't let him for good reason. But that was kind of a crazy thing. But yeah, I mean, they got a really young team, like you said. I don't really, kind of like the Padres. I don't really know if they were all in this year, maybe just trying to have an improved year. But when you've got Freddie Freeman, who's been, he's walked 17 times on the year. His OBP is almost 500. Ozzie Albies been awesome. Inciarte hasn't even gotten going yet because guys like Preston Tucker and Dansby Swanson have really been hitting the ball well. So, I wonder if I've heard rumors maybe Acuna will get called up Monday. Maybe not because of how good Preston Tucker has been hitting for them, so it's going to be something. The Braves, they might, their offense is probably for real right now. I mean, I don't think they'll be this good, obviously, just because it's not possible to keep up. But they could definitely be, a competition for second or third place in the NL East. I don't have them winning it. I still got to take the Nationals. I think there's just too much talent once they get Murphy back and once they get in the groove of things. But between them and the Mets, I mean, the NL East could be a division where I think a lot of people, including myself, wasn't really going to think it was going to be that close, and all of a sudden it could be a lot closer than what people were thinking.
Yeah, and Ozzie Albies, of course, 5 home runs, 11 RBIs, 313 average. I was going to say the same about Inciarte, not really getting the ball rolling. He only has a 179 average. Actually, Mike Foltynewicz is hitting better than him at 250, but smaller sample size, of course. So once Inciarte gets rolling, it's going to be a whole different story with this offense because he sets the table up there at the top. And, Ozzie Albies is just, other than Ohtani, I mean, Albies has been so fun to watch this year, too. And I figured this is the team I figured last year, and they're actually starting to put it together this year. So I'm kind of happy that they're playing like this because Braves, no one can really hate the Braves. There's nothing really wrong with them. Chipper Jones there, obviously Greg Maddux. So, I mean, I've always liked the Braves, and to see them actually doing well again this year is really nice for sure. I mean, looking down and going through the standings, so like I said on last week is, we'll go kind of through the standings each week and see where everyone's at. We'll just go ahead and start off again with the AL East, who, like we talked about, the Boston Red Sox obviously having a huge lead in this league and just playing so well. And, their pitching, of course, is going to be hard to beat, and their hitting is on all cylinders. They're 12-2. Then you got Toronto, who's actually really surprising. They're at 9-5. They're 3 games back. Then you got the Yankees at 7-7, which is also a little bit surprising to a lot of people out there. 5 games back. Baltimore's at 5-10 at 7.5 back. And then obviously, Tampa Bay Rays and their 2-man rotation is 3-10, and they're 8.5 back.
Yeah, I mean, so far, I think a lot of people pretty much expected Boston to be good, which they have been. Lineup's been really good. Chris Sale's been awesome. David Price has actually been pitching pretty well for him as well. So that's not really a huge surprise so far. The big thing is the Yankees. 7-7. You're just kind of waiting for them to kind of click basically on all cylinders, and then after that, it's watch out. I've got to admit with the Orioles, I'm kind of waiting for some of their starters to get blown up, and it's not happening yet. Cobb did today, and Gausman hasn't get going, but Cashner is actually, I got to give you credit at least so far. He's been a surprise. As much fun as I wanted to make fun of you for. And Toronto, I'm kind of surprised that they're holding their head above water. I mean, Aaron Sanchez, he pitched a great game against the Orioles the other day, but with all those injuries to Donaldson and Morales right now, it'll be and Grichuk, he's been absolutely terrible so far. So it'll be interesting to see how long they can keep it up. In my opinion, I expect them to kind of start sliding down a little bit here soon, and maybe teams like the Yankees and even Baltimore could surpass them. But Tampa is so far not so good. I don't think that's going to get too much better, at least so far.
Yeah, definitely, especially with Archer getting blown up today by the Phillies. Moving on to the Central this is where it starts getting a little weird because a lot of these teams, since they are in the Central, there is a lot of rain and a lot of postponements. So we've had a ton of postponements so far this early in the season. And we got Minnesota at 7-4 leading the division, but Cleveland's at 8-6, only a half game back. Chicago's 4-8, 3.5. Detroit's 4-9, 4 games back, and then Kansas City's 3-9, 4.5 back. And actually, other than this is actually 100% how I predicted this. If it ended today, I would have been spot on with the Central.
Well, thankfully for everybody, including me in our predictions, it doesn't end today, but yeah, I mean, Kansas City, they can't score any runs right now. Hopefully they'll get Salvador Perez back soon. He's out with that knee injury. Detroit, man, I mean, Jordan Zimmerman, he took a ball off the jaw the other day, but he was able to walk off under his own power, and he seems like he's going to be all right, which is obviously a really good thing. But Miggy hasn't gotten going yet. Castellanos has been good for him, but Miggy's still struggling. The White Sox, we're just kind of waiting on some of their young guys. We're waiting on Eloy Jimenez and Michael Kopech, a lot of guys like that to kind of come up and then they'll bring a lot of excitement. Tim Anderson's been really good for them so far. And then with Cleveland and Minnesota, we're just pretty much expecting them to battle it out all year. Cleveland's going to get going soon. There's no way with how much talent, Kipnis, Edwin, Lindor, Ramirez, there's no way all these guys can be cold. But Minnesota, they're going to be a really fun team this year, especially once they get Irving back. And then they're pretty much throwing out a quality starting pitching every night almost.
Yeah, and that game got postponed for Minnesota tonight, so I'm sure they might play it. Might play it tomorrow, unless they just go ahead and just postpone it all the way through.
Yeah, it's tough. It's tough because, like you said, it seems like the season started earlier, which is cool. I mean, I'm not going to complain about baseball sooner, but a lot of these teams, you got guys starting. You got series starting in Minnesota or the White Sox, Detroit. All these northern teams where there's no dome and everything like that. And like you said, it seems like almost more rainouts this year than I can remember of any year in the past. So maybe if they're going to start the year sooner like that, maybe let some of these guys with either domes or with southern stadiums or out west, maybe let them kind of have the games for the first couple of weeks just until we get some of that bad weather to pass.
Yeah, so, next game for Minnesota, depending on if they play the game tomorrow or not. It looks like it already said it's postponed. But
yeah, I believe they already postponed it because of snow from what I remember seeing.
Yeah, so it looks like their next game is slated to be on the 17th, which is a lot of off days, but 17th against Cleveland, so that's going to be a big series. Moving on to the West is one of the most interesting so far, and I'm sure a lot of people are, like we talked about, should be watching this race. You got Los Angeles Angels at 12-3, leading the division. Then you got Houston at 10-5, 2 games back. Then you got Seattle at 7-4, actually playing 500 ball, but not as much games because they have been a part of a lot of postponements as well. They're 3 games back. Then you got Oakland at 5-9, 6.5, and then Texas at 5-11 at 7.5 back.
Yeah, not a lot of surprises here. Like we talked about, it's going to be fun between the Angels and Houston all year. I think the Mariners are kind of like a team like you were saying earlier about the Braves, where it's kind of like who's really going to hate Seattle. I can't really think. They've had Griffey, they've had Edgar Martinez, they've had a lot of fun guys, and I don't really think anybody could really hate the Mariners, at least in my opinion. So they're kind of a team that I like to see up there competing. They got D. Gordon from the Marlins for pretty much nothing. He's been really good for them in center field, and he's just been getting a lot of hits so far. Now they finally got their big bopper back with Cruz. Cano's been great for them so far. And Haniger's been really a really good young guy for them in right field. So yeah, I mean, I like to see Seattle up there. I'm not going to lie, kind of a little bit of a bias. I really do enjoy watching them play. But yeah, LA and Houston, 2 of the most exciting and just well put together teams in all of baseball, not just the American League.
Yeah, for sure. And then moving over to the National League is, one of the more surprising and like we were talking about is the New York Mets are leading this division at 11-1. Only lost 1 game. They might lose their second today. Then you got Philadelphia at 7-5, 4 games back. Atlanta at 8-6, 4 games back. Then you got the Washington Nationals at 7-8, 5.5 back. And then you got Miami, of course, 4 games won, 9 games lost at 7.5 back.
Yeah, I mean the Mets have been awesome. There's no questioning that. Cespedes has been cold for them even, but he had a big hit the other night against Miami. So the Mets, they like I said, the biggest concern with them I think is they have a really old lineup and they have a really injury risk with starting pitching. Their bullpen's been great. I believe Uris Familia, he leads the league in saves right now. So their bullpen's been really good. It just depends how long the rotation can stay healthy. Syndergaard, Harvey, DeGrom's been good, and then you got Matz and Wheeler. So it just some of those guys are going to get hurt. It depends how long they're out for and when they get hurt. And with the lineup, you've got Frazier, Asdrubal Cabrera, Jose Ramirez, Adrian Gonzalez. You've got Jay Bruce, Yoenis. You've got some injury prone guys. So they're really going to just have to stay healthy. But they definitely got the talent. Philly's been fun so far. I think Arrieta's pitching for them tonight against against Tampa, so he's been doing all right tonight at least. And that lineup's been really good. Reese Hoskins has been playing great. Cesar Hernandez has been good, and we cannot not mention Scott Kingery for them. He's been great. Rookie of the Year candidate so far, playing it seems like all different positions. He's been really good, and Atlanta and the Nationals, we pretty much covered them a good bit.
Yeah, and then moving on to probably one of the closest four-man races is going to be the Central, and you got Pittsburgh leading in at 9-4, and then you got St. Louis at 8-7, only 2 games back. As bad as the Cubs have been playing, they've actually stayed in it. They're 7-7, 2.5 games back. Then you got Milwaukee, who we both liked and thought would be up there, 7-7, 2.5 games back. Obviously, they did lose Yelich, so that's going to hurt. And then, Cincinnati, worst team in baseball so far, at 2-12, 7.5 back.
Yeah, we covered Pittsburgh a good bit. St. Louis right now, they're really getting some good young starting pitching out of Luke Weaver and Jack Flaherty. Their bullpen, they got our favorite. We can't not go a podcast without mentioning Greg Holland. But I think they kind of rushed him back. His first appearance in there, and he walked the first 4 guys he faced before getting pulled. So that was obviously, we don't want to talk about that because we don't want to say anything bad about Greg Holland. So obviously the umpire was biased against him,
exactly.
But Tommy Pham's been good for them. Paul DeJong, even though he's been striking out a lot, he's been hitting some homers. Jose Martinez, their first baseman outfielder, he's been awesome. I believe he's tied with Polanco for the league lead in RBI. So they're really finding a reason, a way to get him into the lineup for good reason because of that bat. And with the Cubs and Milwaukee, Cubs, that was a big win today. Right now it just seems like they got Rizzo out, so the lineup's not really at its full force, and that starting pitching's been bad. There's no doubt about it. Darvish and Quintana and Chatwood have not pitched well. Hopefully they'll be able to turn it around. And with Milwaukee, they're really struggling with injuries right now too. Their star closer, Corey Knebel, is out a while with a hamstring injury. Like you said, Lorenzo Cain's out with a side injury. Christian Yelich, sorry. Lorenzo Cain, he got beat up the other night with an ankle injury. So they've kind of been beaten up a little bit. And Cincinnati, man, it's going to be a long year.
Yeah, and finally, the last division, which is, other than the Dodgers down there, is kind of how I expected this division to go. Arizona 10-3, didn't really expect that, but expect them to be up there. But 10-3 leading the division. Colorado at 8-8, 3.5 games back. Somehow, through all the injuries and now almost no pitchers, San Francisco 6-7, only 4 games back. The Dodgers 4-8, 5.5 back, which is, I don't know. Last year I think they started off super hot, and this year not so much. And then obviously San Diego, which we kind of expected, they're 5-10, 6 games back.
Yeah, Arizona, we covered them pretty much, but, they've been good. Colorado, right now, Arenado, but especially Blackman and LeMahieu, their offense has been really good. They've got a lockdown bullpen. They paid a lot of money for it this year. They're still going to have to figure out their rotation. You got Chad Bettis pitched a really good game, and Tyler Anderson, I believe, against the Nationals the past 2 nights. They pitched well. John Gray didn't really pitch very well today. So they're going to have to get their rotation. Definitely, that's kind of, I think as far as the rotation goes, is how far Colorado will go. San Fran, they're really just trying to hold on until they get their main guys. Samardzija, Cueto, and Bumgarner are all out right now, and Melanson. So that's 4 of their key pitching that's out. Strickland's been really good so far as their closer, but you're going to need a lot more than that, especially in that division to compete. McCutcheon's been great for them, but Evan Longoria has not been good for them. So that's kind of, one's been a good acquisition, the other's not. The Dodgers, they're just waiting for Justin Turner to come back. And hopefully Jansen will get figured out. And Padres, we pretty much covered them next year. Pretty much that's when you're getting some prospects up. It stinks. They're probably their best pitcher, definitely their best young pitcher. Dinelson Lamet, he has to have Tommy John surgery, so he's going to be out until at least midway next year. But they've got exciting prospects. Fernando Tatis Jr. and some other guys. So. That's a really fun division, honestly, just to watch up and down between Arizona, and you're going to expect the Dodgers to come back.
Yeah, and, since you guys aren't really going to hear this at this time, but I think there's 4 pitchers, or I guess 5 pitchers really, you need to watch tomorrow, which would be Sunday the 15th. You won't hear it in time, but hopefully you'll catch the games. Bundy's going up against Sale, which could be a really good pitching match since both of those guys have been super good this year. Then you got Ohtani obviously pitching tomorrow at 2:15 against the Royals. And then, of course, we're going to see if Kershaw can win his first game of the year as he battles up against Zach Godley, who's been godly this year, and see if he can do it and get a win. But other than that, just want to thank everyone who does listen on YouTube, iTunes. The popularity for last week's was super off the chart, better than any of the other episodes. If you get a chance, go back and listen to some of our other early season episodes, talking about the off season. And then, of course, as always, just leave us a comment on iTunes. Go over to our YouTube page, just search us Talking Around the Bases. Leave us a subscribe, like, comment, or even send us an email to talkingaroundthebases@gmail.com. Just let us know anything maybe that we might have missed, something that we can talk about, or just give us a shout out and talk to us, because like we said, we always like talking baseball. So thanks to everyone who has supported us so far.
Yeah, man. I mean, the views have been awesome. We still, we love hearing from you guys. So like Ryan said, hit us up on all of those platforms. My personal Twitter account, HATMANN 15, it's Hatman15. You hit me up there. I'm always on there talking sports, or at least reading about sports. Right now, obviously a great time for sports. Baseball is getting ready to go into pretty much the full swing of things. NBA playoffs, NHL playoffs are on. Unfortunately, I'm a Capitals fan, so that hasn't really been going well the past, 10 years for me. But hey, man, I mean, it's a great time to be a sports fan, and just like Ryan said, man, thanks everybody for listening and just enjoying baseball with us.
Yeah, definitely, and we'll see you guys next week, where we'll talk about probably some more exciting stuff, especially with Ohtani's start, and give a little fill in on the updated standings. So thanks for joining me again, Logan, and we'll catch you guys next week.
All right, thanks everyone.